Hi, welcome to day 2. I'm going to talk about drywall for a second and how to figure out how much you need.
Buckle up for safety as I give you a day in the life of online. No, not online. I'm actually there. Facilities maintenance.
So, if we take a look at the wall here, I am going to go with 4 sheets of 4x8 drywall. Even though the wall itself is 9.5 feet tall, I'm able to do 4x8 sheets because of the way that they will be configured for the space. So before you go out and make your purchase, you actually want to think about how you are going to install your drywall. Don't take a full square footage measurement necessarily. Think about how you actually want to lay the pieces down. Let's just think of this as one-sided for the time being. Let's just look at the front face here. It's only going to take 2 sheets of drywall and minimal seams. I'm going to do that by taking my first sheet and putting it lengthwise on the left-hand side. My second piece will go on the right-hand side, and that will leave me with a strip at the top that is only about 1.5 feet wide, just shy of 1.5 feet. It's about 16 inches to fill in. But if you look at the trimmed out piece that came from the door, that is large enough to fit that top piece. So I am going to have 1 seam down the middle above the door, and then 1 seam going from left to right along the whole width. And the reason it's important to figure that out is because that tells you where you need to put your backing in. Cutting drywall under a shady tree. One of the joys and challenges of working by yourself is figuring out ways to do things to make life a little easier. Cutting drywall with a skill saw is not high on the recommended list of how to actually cut drywall. However, outside, with the breeze blowing the other way, I've just cut the top 2 sheets at this point, and if it works, I will cut the rest of it. The way I look at it is, why carry more up there than I need to?
Work smarter, not harder, right?
Okay, here are my 4 panels that are going to fit in spots 1 and 2. Now, before I get ready to board this, because that 8-foot built-in shelf is actually going to be built in, I need 3 more pieces of backing. But a 12-inch piece here, a 22-inch piece there, and a 45-inch piece down there, which I will attach to the back of the shelf. It'll leave a flange, which will give me a mounting surface for the drywall on the other side. And the most creative cutting piece award goes to this one right here.
Time to mud and tape.
Most of the time I just keep on hand a bucket of all-purpose drywall mud. I kind of wish I would have not done that this time though. This bucket of mud that I bought it's really runny, and it's a very thin mix, thinner than I would prefer, and as a result of it being so thin, it's a little harder to control. I mean, even when I'm just putting the mud back in the bucket here, I got a blop on the floor. Got another splat on the floor down here. It just came off like a drop. So that's a first coat. When I come back next week, Monday, it's Friday today, by the way. So when I come back on Monday, I'll be able to touch up any imperfections. And when that dries, I can hit it with paint. To finish the edge of the wall, I am going to cap that with wood. And for that purpose,
Wood.
and in this particular instance, I am not worried about overspray because the work table is Verithaned, so the overspray is the same thing that's on there in the first place. If anything, I should do the whole table. Good morning. It's Monday morning. Back at her. I'm going to start sanding the drywall and maybe do a little bit of touch-up and then let that dry, which should be quick because it'll just be a very thin little touch-up, and hit that with paint today. Maybe even get the trim on. Have to re-mud that. That's standard when you're doing butt joints and whatnot. It's not a one and done. You have to build it up. And when I'm sanding, I'm being careful to just feather the edges and take off a minimal amount. You don't want to sand out everything that you put in there. Your goal is to create an invisible transition where the boards meet. And so you have to work the seam in such a way that while you'd be able to feel it with your hand, visually when you stand back and you look, you don't see that there's a joint there. It's a bit of an art. Drywallers who do this every day are artists. They really are. It just takes time. So you get good at not putting in too much mud in the first place, so you don't have to sand away too much. You just build it up as you need to, and yeah, sometimes less is more. So I'm going to try and get this done with one more skim and then a final sand for paint. The lighting isn't great in here. There are lots of shadows. I should actually have some supplementary lights in here to help me see the wall in a uniform fashion. So it's actually kind of hard to see the low spots. But I'm getting there. Okay, I'm gonna leave that to dry for a few hours, head off and do some other jobs, clean up my tools, and I'll come back to this when it's dry for another sanding, and then hopefully paint. And by other work, I mean this trim piece here that I started last Friday. I'm going to give it a light sanding and another coat of Verithain. And I've got a couple more pieces of wood here that I have on hand. It's a little curvy, but I think I can work with this. It's straight in one direction. Some 1x2 here. If you haven't figured me out yet, I tend to make a lot of my own millwork and trim as it suits the application. I can make it from scraps or extra wood that I have oftentimes. I've got all the equipment here to do it, and it saves me time and money. I can make it faster than it would take me to drive to the store and maybe not find something that's actually going to fit the application that I'm using it for. So I left the frame sitting in such a way on the front side, the revealed side, that just caulking around the edge will finish that off nicely. And on the back side, I need to trim it out to protect the edge of the drywall. I can make that out of this 2x4 right there. I'll start by ripping that in half, turning it into a 2x2, and then I will cut it in such a way so that it'll work as brick molding that I want. The 2x4 is exactly 3.5 inches wide, so halfway is 1 3/4. So I set my saw to 1 3/4, but then I just backed it up, just bumped it back maybe 1/16 of an inch to allow for half of a kerf width of the blade, so that my two pieces actually come out the same size. Now, again, if I wanted to be really precise, I would just go from here after cutting them and run them through the thickness planer to make sure that they're dimensionally the same all the way around. And I may do that. That's a good idea. Good idea, Arne. Let's go. There. So, while they are not perfect, clean, straight pieces of trim, these are dimensionally perfectly square, right? Same height, same width, and they're identical to each other. So now when I cut 45-degree angles and and put them together, everything will be perfectly matchy-matchy. Same with these little guys. They are now dimensionally exactly the same as well. So they're only 8-footers, and I'm looking at a 9.5-foot corner piece that I want to trim out, the wall height, and these will butt up together perfectly, so I can make a seamless joint when I butt them together.
I said butt.
Yeah, it's the little things. I just thought I would check in on the status of our mudding, and you can see how much it's dried, but you can still see a little bit of dampness in the middle there. So it's been about 3 hours. I would say that I will be able to resand and possibly hit that with paint before the end of the day. I am ready for paint. I've got things set up, and I think I have enough paint to put 2 coats on. It's going to take 2 coats. So let's get started. Okay, that's good for 1 coat. It'll be so good. So good. Oh man, there's some serious chunks in here.
That's a good one.
Well, it's not my best work, but it is work, and it'll do. Okay, I'm gonna go grab my trim. I'm gonna start cutting these boards to create some, basically like a brick molding for the back side of the door. And I've set up my saw. And so I'm gonna run each of these pieces through twice to create a notch in them. All right, here are my 2 pieces of brick molding. Just need to break out the square piece that I cut away. That's actually waste. What I'm using is this. I'll take these upstairs and install them now. I'm happy with the way that fits. Now just to finish it out. Since I am literally working with scrap wood that I made these pieces out of, I had to make my final top piece out of a couple of offcuts. It's gonna go up there. At the end of the day, I am now standing on the inside of a small storage room. And so nobody is gonna be standing in here studying the millwork. We're not talking precision. Now, if this was painted white, I could just caulk it and paint it and it would be seamless and you'd never know, but it's not. I'm just leaving it natural wood grain here. It has one quick shot of the last of the varathane that I had just to give it a little bit of a seal, but that's it. So these will go in place and then I'll be done in here. I'm not even going to finish the wall in here. There's absolutely no need to do so. And by not finishing it, a person can actually see where all the screws are. And if, for whatever reason, 10 years from now, the shelving unit needs to come out of here, a person, without actually taking a hammer to it and smashing it out, could literally just undo the screws and remove that drywall panel right there and remove the shelf then. Well, surprisingly, it's not the worst thing in the world. It actually looks okay.
For the inside of a storage room.
My tools are gone. Look how clean it's becoming. I even vacuumed surface areas. And it's my last cart of tools to roll out of here. I will come back and just do some touch-up painting around the frame and then install my black base cove on the front. We are getting close, people. We're getting close.